Hello, everybody. It's James here. Story time with Dutch Mantell, and the cigar man in the background there is, of course, the eponymous Dutch Mantell. I'm James, and let's do some plugs, I suppose. I've got 2 books on the Rock and Owen Hart. They're in the description. Dutch has got 2 books as well. They're in the description if you want to buy them, or if you want signed merchandise from the Dirty Dutchman himself all the way from Oil Trough, Texas, how do the fans get it?
Oh, they can email me at Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. And hey, I'm a little bit closer to getting my website up. Man, I've been talking about this ever since we've been doing this. But I wanted to do it myself. I just can't do it myself, so I get lazy. But it is getting close to being operative. You like that word, operative? And hopefully that's up within a couple of weeks, maybe. I hope. And if you want the book, the great books, if you add them together, it's like 700 pages of wrestling related stories and events that have happened to me or around me in the course of this business. And I am in the process now of writing another book. I just don't have a name for it, and I haven't really decided on the title for it. But I'm in the process of writing the 3rd book, which will make it a trilogy. So yeah, I'll have book 1, 2, and 3, and that. See, I haven't written about anything since 2000, maybe 10, and that's when I kind of started. Now I got 2010 up to now that I can write about, plus some other things that are left out in the first 2. But it should be an entertaining book. People still write me and tell me that even though the books were, I mean, there's no time limit on the books. An old story is an old story, no matter when it's told. And a lot of people didn't know these stories, would never have a chance to know these stories. But now, through the mastery of pen and paper and typing and printing, people can get the book. So if you want one, I'll sign it for you. Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com, and I'll get back to you.
Is there any word on, because I saw a week or 2 ago you were posting on Twitter saying this is a good idea for a t-shirt, this might be up, this kind of thing. Is more merchandise like t-shirts going to be coming out soon?
Well, I have some dolls coming out, those little pint-sized dolls.
Oh, are they like cello toys or something?
Something like that. Some guy said, hey, you want some, or you want to put them on sale? And I made a deal with him. I don't know where he went. He took off. And t-shirts I think I'm going to do that through Pro Wrestling Tees, because making t-shirts and shipping them, and that's a full-time job almost. And since I'm adverse to work, have been since ever I started wrestling, I thought one time, and I used to look at wrestlers, and this was a game we used to play. We'd be going down the road and, just looking for topics to fill the time. And I'd say, like I'm riding with you, James, I says, if you saw Jerry Lawler in private life, not in wrestling, what do you think he would be? So what do you think he'd be if you just looked at him?
So I don't know his personality if I just looked at him.
Yeah, what do you think he reminds you of? If he just had a regular job.
Okay.
It was actually, we would go for miles and miles like this. And some of them we'd say, well, I think he'd be a drug dealer like he is now. And then some of them would be, they would be more reserved. We would say, well, he'd probably be like a teacher, a high school teacher, especially if they like young girls. They'd be a high school teacher. Stop it. I know you're thinking, and somebody would say, well, I think he'd be like a truck driver or a banker. But that was actually a pretty good story. So what do you think? Name somebody, and I'll tell you what I think they'd be.
Okay.
Anybody.
I know. I can name anybody. I don't know. Santino Marella.
Santino Marella. I think he'd be a grocer selling fruits. Because I think, and I like that guy. I love that guy. Jim Cornette doesn't like him too much. But he's a great guy, great talker. You like him. he's the type of guy who has never met a stranger, and he's always friendly, and you like him from the get go. So, but I think he would be like a grocer, be a great butcher, a fruit stand guy, but he'd be in selling something because he'd be good at that. Let's get started on this because.
Oh, I was going to think of some more. Never mind. We'll have to get on Santino another time then. But okay, we have we've got 2 weeks worth of news as the unique way that we do this podcast. We do 1 week of news that sort of encompasses the last 2 weeks, I suppose. But
because the news gets slow, and that's when they make up crap. The mainstream media makes up stuff. The wrestling media is no different. They got to have clickbait. They got to have it, so they make up stuff that could be true. Most likely it's not true. And I think we're going to talk about one of my dearest friends I've ever had, Dave Meltzer, just a little bit, not right now. But that's what he does. He just makes up stuff because – I'll get on him in just a minute. Don't go away, folks.
No.
You might miss a hell of a tirade coming up.
Well, you might actually have some praise for Dave Meltzer coming up, it sounds like. But for now, we will do the most important news. One of your original rivals in Puerto Rico, Jose Hurricane Rivera, and I must stress this, not Jose Luis Rivera, who was a jobber for the WWF and the Conquistadors and everything, but this is Hurricane Rivera in Puerto Rico. Died as we record this a few days ago, and how big of a draw? In fact, let's just go straight away. Memories of Jose.
Well, I went to Puerto Rico, and I don't want to date myself, but it was 1979, and I thought they'd been in business like for years and years and years. They'd only been in business 3 years when I got down there. I didn't know that. I thought I was going down there to work for a company that, that had been around for a while. It was almost a brand new company when I got there, and they had never really drawn big money. I didn't know that. I wish somebody had keyed me in, but I didn't. But Jose Rivera was one of their top guys there. He was not the top booker, but I think him and Carlos booked it. And he was always good to me. And, of course, he spoke English, but not perfectly. But I understood him. And he was always very good to me and was over like a son of a gun. So the reason we drew such big money, and I got to tell you this, when I went to Puerto Rico, Carlos, it was January the 6th with this Three Kings Day. Well, I didn't know Three Kings Day from damn Jackrabbit Day. It's a religious holiday. I didn't know that. But Three Kings Day is like a second Christmas in Puerto Rico. And that's the day I went down on January the 5th because they had the big show on January the 6th. And I noticed that the San Juan airport was just packed. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this place so packed for? I mean, you couldn't hardly move in that airport. So I got in the car and I went to the hotel they told me to go to, and I checked in there, and then we did the big show on Three Kings Day, and it was like a holiday card, and it did really well. It did, I don't know, 12,000 people or something, but the people were off work and they could bring their kids, and so we went there. So the next week, Carlos and Jose had watched our match, and Carlos sent word to us or told us, he said, hey, come in the office and let's sit down and let's work out what we're going to do here. I said, okay. So I went to pick up my partner, Frankie Lane. He's passed away now. But I went to pick him up. And on the way to the office, he says, and he had been hit in the head by Zulu about 2 years earlier, and it kind of scrambled his brain.
Just to explain that story again, what's the Zulu story? Because it's an interesting one.
Well, the Zulu story was they were working in the Sheik's territory, and I think Frankie kept kidding him, and I think Zulu got tired of it one day and picked up a piece of like a barbell, like about this long. And he came in and he hit him and knocked him out. But that kind of scrambled his brain. And he was never, and I never knew him before I met him in Puerto Rico. The people that knew him said he was never the same after that. So when he was talking, he had a little bit of a speech impediment then. So on the way over there, he said, well, Dutch, what do you think they want to talk to us about? I mean, it didn't affect his work or anything, just his speech, I think. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, they're going to ask us what we want to do. See, I'd never been in a situation like that before where they asked me what I wanted to do. I'd only been in the business 3 or 4 years at the time. Hell, I would say, I don't know. What do you want to do? So we got down there and I had an answer for him. And I don't know where in the hell this idea came from, but I had remembered it. It's called the Silver Dollar Challenge, which is we took 1,000 silver dollars and put it in a clear plastic thick bag where you could, because they don't have silver dollars in Puerto Rico. So and $1,000 then was like, say, 20,000 now. So we put it on the line to any team who could beat us within 10 minutes on TV. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but we laid out 10 weeks of TV for them, just with us. And we went on and on and on, and nobody could beat us, and nobody could beat us. And one day, here come Carlos, and here come Jose. And I was just ripping the island to pieces, calling them like, you can't do this now. I was calling them half-breeds and whatever, and the men were like effeminate, and the women were unpaid prostitutes. Oh, man, I had a lot of heat with those people. But I thought it was because of my great wrestling ability is what I thought, till I finally found out, no, they really hate you, you bastard, because you've been – and I was the only American who went down and just trash-talked the island. So they come up on TV and they come out there one day and we had a match and they come out and they said, hey, we're tired of you running your big fat mouth, you American, whatever. And said, we'll take you on. Just give us time to get ready. Oh, and we had started complaining about quit putting these damn underneath guys against us. Give us the main guys. So when they come out to face us, we were on last. And of course, the rating that way just zoomed. Because they had like Memphis used to have almost primetime ratings on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon or whenever the show was on. So, of course, we had the match. They won, bastards. They won. And then we attacked Jose and got him down and kept hitting him with a chair and he was bleeding. I remember one little old lady she could hardly stand up. She threw a chair into the ring. I still remember that. And we had trouble getting out of the ring at TV. There was only like 50, 60, 75 people there. And we had trouble getting out there. And then I remember Hurricane Castillo, because we had beat Jose up so much. Then we started on Carlos. And then Hurricane Castillo hit the ring. He was a big heel. And he started on us. And we lay off. And they cut a big promo. Then Jose went home for 4 weeks to sell it. But Castillo and Carlos, we were still selling out. And then finally, when we got to the end of that, we just parlayed Jose's injury, and he came right in a match in the big stadium, and we won another 4 or 5 weeks. We drew about 9 sellouts in a row. And I know that will never be duplicated, because I don't think they could give away 16 or 17,000 wrestling tickets in Puerto Rico now, because that's just the nature of the business. And we would draw houses upwards of, and now this is you got to put money where money was. A dollar then was like $4 or $5 now. So we would draw $50,000 houses in that money. A $50,000 house today is good money. So if you translated it, we were probably doing $150,000 on one show. every Saturday night. That's what they made all that big money on. But he was a good guy. He was over and he helped me a lot. My condolences to his son, Jose Jr., who I really liked a lot. I used him later. Very good. But I didn't know Jose Rivera had passed away till you told me.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Well, I'm sorry to break the news to you then.
Well, you told me the other day when we were talking, but it's not like you broke the news to me now.
Oh.
But I didn't know he had passed away, though.
You very quickly, he retired very early, it seems, as far as I can see, and then he came back for a few matches here and there, and then you wrestled him in like 98 or 99 or something in a tag match, maybe.
That was like a flashback, I guess. I don't remember that. But 88, or you say 88?
No, 98. 98.
Wow. What was it? A wheelchair match? Both of us?
Well, I'm just googling now to double check my source there.
I don't remember that, to tell you the truth.
Well, fair enough then. Well, I'll tell you what then. We'll move on to some more news then. But just before I do, can someone please change Jose Luis Rivera's Wikipedia to say that he's still alive? For goodness' sake. And more news that came out. This was late last night. Adam Hangman Page got knocked out in yesterday's AEW Tuesday Dynamite edition from a fairly, didn't look particularly bad clothesline. You've seen the video, and just to set the scene, Adam Page does sort of like the Kurt Hennig flip kind of thing from the clothesline, and then he lands face down, and then he's just out. The doctor actually runs in, looks at Adam, and just calls the match, and rightly so, because so many other times that, you know, in days past, they'd be sort of like trying to work a way into finishing the match, but this was just the sensible, nope, forget it. So, yeah, what do you think of everything there?
Well, I think who is to blame for that? Well, I think it's got to be Page. Excuse me. I think it's got to be Page because of the way he takes it. He does the flip, which was a good way to stay knocked out. And the clothesline didn't knock him out. The landing knocked him out because the clothesline is already gone. Now he's got to perform the flip, and he probably flipped in such a way that his head hit the mat. That's what knocked him out. So I hate to hear that he's been knocked out, but I think about the times I've been knocked out. We did not have a doctor around. Sometimes I finished matches after I'd been knocked out, which is very, very dangerous. I didn't even really know how dangerous it was until they had all those CTE injuries in WWE. But I finished several matches. I'd been knocked out, and I don't remember the ending. But I thought that was normal. Nobody told me differently. So, and I used to call it just getting your bell rung. And all the guys worked through that. I mean, I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of wrestlers who would get jammed and knocked out, and they would end up finishing the match and doing the right finish. So when you see them come in, and you could tell when they've been knocked silly, you know, their eyes are kind of, they're doing that 1,000-yard stare, and they're only looking at something 10 feet away. But very, very dangerous, those concussions in wrestling, very dangerous. And I don't think it's getting the attention now that it deserves. And I'm glad that doctor was there, because who knows what might have happened. So I'm sending my well wishes to you, Mr. Page, and hope you recover and you're fine.
Yes, he was stretchered out, and he went to the hospital in Cincinnati. They discharged him same evening. No other injuries apart from the concussion, which is good. I know you said straight away there that you said that you think it was the landing that Page took that knocked him out. Are you? Because I kept looking back at the video and I couldn't quite tell. Are you quite certain it was the flip bump and he hit his head on the canvas and that's what did it?
Well, I didn't see a video, But I don't think Moxley would throw one that hard. He looked like he threw it off. I saw a still picture of it. See, the way I always do a clothesline, I would take the guy and I would do it with my right hand. I'd push him back. I always did the short one. So I'd pull him and catch him. I wouldn't have him coming off the rails because now you got 3 or 4 steps you got to compensate for. So keep it close, keep it tight, keep it controlled. And did he go in the ropes and come off and take the clothesline?
I think it was corner to corner.
Okay, well, I didn't see the video, but I'm pretty sure it was a landing.
Okay, I'll tell you what then. Why don't we watch the video on this? Just 1 second. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to play this for Dutch, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, that was awesome by Hangman. Oh! Moxley, the King Kong Lariat decked the challenger.
There we go. I'll play it for you another time. See what you think.
Yeah, that was awesome by Hangman. Oh! Moxley, the King Kong.
What do you think? Do you want to watch it again, or
no?
All right.
It's kind of just a little bit spotty. I mean, it's not fluid, but it's okay. I do still think it's the landing because you can tell that he's knocked out by the way he's laying. I mean, nobody lays that way unless they're hurt. And that's what the referees look for. They look at how the guy's laying. If he's motionless, then he's gone. So, and thinking back on some of the things Paige has said, I don't need help from veterans. I don't need advice. I doubt if that played anything into it, but that was a really, really not insensitive, but, you know, like, I know all I need to know. You never learn this business, ever. There's always something new you can learn. So if somebody is trying to help you just out of pure politeness and consideration of them, listen to it and say, oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Because the guy's not telling you to, he's telling you to help you and to hope he makes you better at your chosen profession. But for him to come out, nah, I don't need any more. I know all I need to know right now. That was, I think that slapped every veteran in the face just a little bit. But I think he wanted to make it, I think the steel lays on Paige. I think he wanted to make it look so good that he ended up knocking himself out.
Well, he did. He made it look great. So
he even believed it. So, so when the referee bent down over him, he could see he was jammed up. Did he give the deal here?
No, well, the doctor just sort of slipped right in and looked at him and just thought, nope, we're out.
Okay.
So, we will move on then. And Dave Meltzer reported on Wednesday morning. This is this morning as we're recording it. That
we're going to talk about Meltzer now.
Well, no, not quite yet. I know you've got quite the amount to say about Mr. Dave Meltzer, but this morning Dave Meltzer reported that Ace Steel, the Nostradamus, of wrestling, and you called it, I called it, I think as well. Ace Steel has been let go for the backstage fracas.
Mm-hmm. And so,
I mean,
I said, yeah, he'd be let go, and probably CM Punk too. I don't know if I said that, but read your rest part of it.
Well,
the rest of it.
It was just a sort of a reminder. Steele was with Punk in Punk's locker room looking after Punk's dog. When the AEW EVPs Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks confront Punk after his press conference, a mega burial of everyone, fight breaks out. Ace Steel, who should be diffusing the situation, instead escalates the situation by pulling Kenny Omega's hair and biting him.
But Ace Steel, what I first read about him, he was helping protect the dog, correct?
No, I don't think he was anyway.
He was trying to get the dog out of the way of something. The big question is, if he's fired, who's going to look after that dog? I stole your line.
I know you did. I wrote that on the script, but you can have it.
But we predicted some legal ramifications, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's coming from Punk, and I think now it's going to come from Ace Steel because of what? Punk is going to say you need to sue him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to sue them for firing you on something you had nothing to do with, and you were trying to protect a friend, me. And whether they can win or not, I don't know, but it'll be settled out of court. Here's Tony Khan sitting there. I think I said this on a couple of shows ago. He's sitting there on top of $1 billion. So I'm sure he's got a couple of million to throw somebody's way just to get him out of the way. So I think that's what's going to happen.
To add to that, a few days ago it was reported that a resolution to the backstage brawl is not forthcoming anytime soon, as legal action has been threatened by one party and has been uncooperative. Now, the party has not been named, but
Dave Meltzer reported that, correct?
Yeah, he reported this, but he named nobody. I've put down everybody thinks it's CM Punk.
Yeah, well, I do. And Ace Steele's is like on the periphery of that, on the edges of it. See, I think Dave Meltzer is pissed because they didn't tell him who was threatening the legal action. And I think, well, he's not used, especially in AEW. I don't think he's used to them not telling him everything. So he's been an outspoken proponent and a supporter of AEW since day one.
Mm-hmm.
And they have rumors floating around that he's on the payroll. He's almost like an inside paid advisor influencer, to use that word. And so, but now, since they didn't let him know that, I think he's pissed off about that. And I think he's mad at them because now I hear that he's bad-mouthing them a little bit, correct?
Well, I gave you the audio from Monday's Wrestling Observer Radio. This is 17th of October 2022, and strap on your seatbelts, everybody, because this is going to involve me reading. So, Meltzer sort of cuts a promo on Tony Khan. It's by far the most withering criticism Meltzer has ever made on AEW or Tony Khan, and it is involving Khan's and AEW's reluctance to give out any information at all about their own company. I'm going to give you some examples, including injury or sickness information on wrestlers, so who knows if they're going to turn up or not, various backstage issues or fights everyone else is reporting on, not explaining on camera or off camera why 4 of AEW's top stars all had the belt stripped from them and are no longer on TV. But I'm going to give you the quotes themselves from Meltzer. I'm going to raise them a bit so I can see them. Meltzer quotes, anything that anyone has heard about Punk press conference and fallout has come from me or Brian Alvarez or Sean Sapp or another reporter, nothing from AEW. And it is like so bad to not even say anything. I cannot think of any other form of entertainment or sports or even a pro wrestling company other than the sleaziest companies there are, and I'm not calling AEW a sleazy company, but in the past...
Kinda.
Yeah, you sort of kind of are. But in the past, you've had sleazy companies run away from stories. Now, Meltzer also goes on to negatively compare AEW in this regard to any independent federation, WWE, and especially New Japan. Quote, if someone gets a cold in New Japan, they tell you, and they tell you a new lineup that very day. Further on in the clip, Meltzer says the justification is that this is the con man world of pro wrestling, and it's the carny world, so they should be able to do it, you know? Card subject to change. I mean, that's ridiculous treating your fans like that. And that's one of the things AEW had in the beginning. You know, mouthful of saliva. It's the idea that there were not garbage pro wrestling and that they treated their fans with respect. I just think AEW should live up to the standard of at least second level pro wrestling, okay? Pretty stinging comments, I think, from former AEW fan Dave Meltzer in that respect.
Well, go back to what I said. He's pissed off because they're not telling him either. See, you could not tell the fans, but guess what? Oh, Dave is there to fill in the blanks. But now he can't fill in the blanks because they're leaving him clueless. And Alvarez and that other Sean Sapp or whatever his name is. See, nobody's reported who's hurt or whatever in this. You're just trying to... I mean, Meltzer said some things, but it hasn't been confirmed through Tony Khan, and that's who he's buddying up to. And he can do what he wants to do, but now the chickens come home to roost, as they say. And now he finds himself in the position of a regular fan, just guessing at what's going on backstage. Whereas before, he could just call Tony or talk to Tony, and Tony would fill him in. Then, of course, hell, that gives him half his paper. He goes, this guy's hurt, and this guy's hurt, and blah, blah, blah. But they're not telling him anything. And I think in Dave's mind, somebody has gotten to Tony and says, quit cozying up to Dave Meltzer and those guys, because if they want to, as this demonstrates, if they want to, they can cause you a lot of problems. Now, we have been talking about the lawsuit. I think Ace Steel is going to come with one. And then I think follow closely. Or they could even team up, because CM Punk, he teamed up with, what was his name? The other guy that he financed the lawsuit on. I can't even remember his name now.
Oh, Colt Cabana.
Colt Cabana. He is no stranger to a lawyer's offices.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think he's going to sue, whether we hear about it or not. And that's what Dave Meltzer would like to know, because that's big news. That is big, big news. And he's afraid with this new shut him out policy, seems like to me, this whole thing could come and go without him even knowing about it. Because I'm sure if it happens, they're going to sign the NDAs, for whatever good they are. They didn't do Vince any good, but they're going to sign non-disclosure agreements, and he may never hear about it. So Dave may have worked himself into a hole that he can't get out of. That remains to be seen. I don't think he's completely out of AEW, but that's his business, reporting on wrestling organizations. So he's still going to report on them. He's just a little mad right now.
If we sort of like leave Dave Meltzer out of this and just go on Tony Khan's new policy over the last 6 months of completely shutting out all media, I mean, what do you as a booker think of that? Because it pushes away the fans a bit. And also there's a practical problem, is that you never know. I mean, no storyline reason was ever given for Punk and Omega and the Young Bucks for not turning up anymore. So that's a great big creative hole. And
why would you even, seriously, I think it's a big ado about nothing. Thanks to Dave Meltzer and Alvarez and everybody else, everybody in the world is smart to how the business works. And everybody that's a big wrestling fan will read something about wrestling and about the big fight and know that they got sent away. Whether they tell them or not on TV, that's another story. I think that's maybe why he's complaining too, because the one fan that's sitting back in Chicken Ridge, West Virginia, he only has an antenna on top of his house and doesn't have internet. He's probably the only one in the world who doesn't know about the fight in the AEW dressing room, because Dave, it was big news for him for 2 or 3 weeks, and Alvarez, big news, and PW Insider, big news. But now they're shutting them down. And I do think sometimes they have really opened the dressing room up too much to these inside guys. Now the NFL, they get to come into the dressing room after the game. They can talk to whoever they want to, blah, blah, blah. This is a little bit different because I don't think the guys, they don't really know what to say, and they're green. They're green to guys getting news. Meltzer has also, you don't hear this a lot, but a lot of the stories years ago about, you read a lot about Bruiser Brody. And I love Brody, but Brody was smart. Brody used Meltzer to get his way in Japan, because he would put his story out, and his story would take precedence over even the company story. And that's what made Brody such a bigger star in Japan. He was already a big star, but it made him a bigger star and made him able to negotiate big time contracts or big time money, not necessarily contracts, for him and Abdullah and Stan Hansen, because those guys to me are the Americans that really made Japanese wrestling to me. Because those fans would come out because Hansen's a big cowboy was different. Brody swinging the chain, who, and Abdullah, when he walked out on the floor in a Japanese arena or gymnasium, people backed up because they had never seen anything like that before. Those were the golden days of wrestling when fans were actually fearful and afraid of wrestlers like that. Now, they wasn't afraid of me. They'd say, I'll beat the crap out of some bitch. But Brody at 6'8" and Abdullah at over 400 pounds and Hansen at 6'7" or whatever he was and big, yeah, that was something different for them to see, and nobody ever bothered them. Except one guy did bother Brody, attacked him in the back on the way back. You know who that was?
No.
You never heard the story?
No.
Godfather. The Godfather. You know the Godfather in WWE?
Yeah, of course.
Charles.
Yeah.
Charles, I forgot his last name.
Right.
But nothing. Charles Wright. Of course, forgetting stuff is nothing new for me. And I was riding with him one day, and he told me that he attacked Brody. I said, "You what?" He said, "Yeah, you don't know that story?" I said, "Well, no, I don't." And he said he went to a Vegas show, and here comes Brody Bay. And he said, I stood in front of him, and he went, and then as he said, I went, back at him. And he said, then we just locked up, and they pulled us apart. And he said, that's what got me in wrestling. He said, and they noticed me. And that's how he got started in pro wrestling, because he took on Brody, and he was a tough son of a gun.
Who won the fight? Or was there any fight, really?
No, there was a fight, a legitimate fight, I guess. Or not, maybe they threw some punches and walled around or something, you know. But just the mere thought of him locking up with Brody, as intimidating as he was, and this guy, and guess what? The people that saw it, guess what they thought it was? A work.
Oh.
But they immediately started thinking, man, I'd like to see this. So I forgot the rest of the story. I don't know if he wasn't ready to have a match then, but they got him ready. And I think he went on and he had a few matches with Brody, I think, maybe. But that was the only story I've ever heard of a guy getting into the business, and there's others, I'm sure, because he attacked a wrestler.
Oh, I've got one for you.
Yep.
But it's not a big name. I think he was called T. Ranchula. He was a job guy for WCW. Had it's a terrible name. And he got into the business because he believed everything he saw in the late 80s, and he saw Hulk Hogan getting beaten up by whoever it was, Earthquake, and he ran into the ring. He was a huge guy, about 6'7", ran into the ring and started putting the boots to whoever Hogan's opponent was. And then eventually from that, Hogan ended up sort of pulling him away and saying, get into the business this way. And that's how that guy got into the business. He didn't really do anything. He was on WCW a few times.
Who is he? What's his name?
He's called T. Ranchula. If you can crack that code.
I never heard of him. But, and what was our main subject here?
Oh,
Meltzer?
well, yeah, no, actually, well, it sort of is, actually, but I'm going to go to specifically Tony Khan. We'll go back, we'll wrap it up and everything. Now, keep in mind that Tony Khan is, or was probably, Wrestling Observer's Booker of the Year, and then he left.
Well, imagine that.
And all of a sudden, he's got possibly the most interesting thing he possibly could have is Punk and Kenny Omega and blah, blah, blah. All this real-life animosity that you could really play off on television. And when I interviewed Val Venus last week and a few weekends before, he said that's the difference between Tony Khan and Vince McMahon, because when Vince McMahon had the WWF World Wildlife Fund people knocking on his door, he loses the legal battle, he has to change his name to WWE. He could have knocked him for 6, or what he did was do the Get the F Out t-shirts and sold a load of t-shirts and made a negative into a positive. And that's the difference between McMahon, back then at least, and Tony Khan now.
Well, Get the F Out was a great marketing gimmick, but they let the fans know what that T-shirt meant. Because the World Wildlife Foundation, they didn't want to be associated with wrestling, and it was like low rent, and what they were doing was so much more humane and moral than anything the WWE or the old WWF could have done. So when they got that news out, and through Meltzer and through Alvarez and through whoever was doing it, PW Insider or whatever, but through the mainstream media more, through the Times and New York Post and all the big newspapers, that's how they got the marketing behind get the F out. And I don't know who come up with that, but some marketing guy, I'm sure, he just thought about it and said, wow, that's a great idea. Get the F out. And that was good. That was great. I would have even bought one had I knew they had it on sale. I knew they had it on sale, but I just don't buy stuff like that.
No. We will move on then. And you watched SmackDown this Sunday. It was the television re-debut almost of Bray Wyatt. He returns to SmackDown. Your opinions on everything. I know you talked about this on Sportskeeda. I'll bring up some stuff you said on there as well. But initial impressions on Bray Wyatt's return as somebody who wasn't previously the biggest fan of Bray.
Well, I'm still not the biggest fan of Bray, but it's not up to me to set the market value. It's up to fans. And what I'm saying, if you like Bray Wyatt, more power to you. But I don't think he, other than his merchandise sales, which is astronomical, I heard, I don't think he added that much to the live gates or the pay-per-view buys. Because he would just go in the ring and just beat guys up. Where's the heat in that? There's no heat. I mean, he didn't really cheat. He just beat guys. So how are you going to boo a guy that basically just beat another guy straight up? What are you mad about? Nothing. He just beat him. So that was the only problem I saw with him. But as a merchandiser, and a merchandise mover, I think he really, really moved the needle on that. And that's what they're looking at because what is this month, October?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what's coming?
Halloween.
And Christmas.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Halloween with the Fiend. That would have been perfect.
Well, a little bit too late for that, but still that is a marketing tool they can use for Halloween. But Christmas is coming. The biggest part of the year, gift buying and all this, and they're going to get his stuff out ready for that. That's all. They're already planning for that. But I hope he does well, and I don't know if they're going to give him that crew of characters behind him. I wouldn't right now because you got 6 characters behind him. You can introduce them in different times when you need them. I mean, if you put him out there, you're kind of layering down his effect. You're diluting his effect. I'd put him out there by himself. And whether he's going to come out as Bray Wyatt or whether he's going to come out as the Fiend, it remains to be seen. But one thing they got to go with this guy, they got a lot of different doors they can open. And that's a lot better than having just one guy. You got to figure out something for one guy. But this guy's got 6 doors, 7 doors, and a lot of characters. So, but who would you say he would have a feud with first? And what is he? Is he a babyface or is he a heel? What is he?
Well, when he came out, he was almost Wyndham Rotunda with a tear in his eye and thank you for having me back kind of thing. And then some pre-roll runs, and it's all going to be supernatural. And so I don't know who he'd feud with first. I mean, if Randy Orton came back fairly soon, then they could pick up from there, which is probably his most memorable feud before he was fired. I don't know.
Well, but I think him coming out there, he showed the real Bray Wyatt. But yet, at the same time, I'm thinking, well, maybe the fans don't want to see the real Bray Wyatt. I mean, they appreciated it. And he had the tears coming down. And see, I've never really gotten guys that really cry at this stuff because I've never cried in a wrestling ring. I may have missed going in there, and I may have missed the fans, but not enough to actually get emotional about it and start tearing up and crying. I've just never been that way. I mean, when I tear up, there's a reason for it, but wrestling wasn't it. And I think and I said on Sportskeeda, I think, but you can see every Friday night, ladies and gentlemen, at 11:05 Eastern, because I watched 2 hours of SmackDown and then 1 hour of Rampage, and then we go live on Sportskeeda Facebook and we critique the show. Actually, a pretty good show, really, because we're going straight from the live show into our critique of it. But it's I think Bray gave them the real Bray Wyatt, but I don't think they knew what they were going to see. But in seeing that, I think that surprised the people. It's like you've heard the fourth door, the fourth curtain.
You're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, you're right. So I think that's what he did. He opened it up, and there he was. And he has a kind of a mythical quality about him too. As long as that doesn't get broken, I think he's going to be fine. But I don't know how much he's going to make in the overall scheme of things. But he came back at the exact right time. It's almost like the perfect storm, in a good way, is coming, because Vince is gone. Triple H is back. Creative has more control. They're more competent. Plus, Bray Wyatt is a master thinker, creator. So I think if they are lacking on some of what they want him to do, he's more than able and willing to fill them in.
Just one more thing I want to pick up is that you said on the Sportskeeda show that you would like to see Bray booked like Hulk Hogan. Now, it was The Fiend. He was sort of booked almost beyond Hulk Hogan, because just nothing affected him at any point, whereas Hulk Hogan really was a fantastic seller before he beat you.
Even beyond that, see, Hulk Hogan, you didn't see him on TV every week.
Yes.
When you saw him come out, something was up. Something big was coming down. Of course, a big pay-per-view, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, something. I would withhold a lot of Bray Wyatt's or the Fiend's TV appearances till it meant something. Then when he comes out, and then he can look around and he knows what to do. But you got to make his appearances have meaning. They got to have effect and a reason for him to be there. Him coming out, trotting out every week as the Fiend and beating somebody, it will get old quick. Very, very quick. And I think you're actually booking in reverse. You're booking to get him unover instead of over. Am I right or not? If you see somebody, if you just look at SmackDown in the last 6 months, how many times have you seen Ricochet? 50 times?
Yeah.
A lot more, not that much. But he's like he's great in the ring. But if you see him too much, his moves then become predictable, and you've seen it before. It's like having the same songwriter come out and sing the same song every week. After a while, you've heard it and you know it by heart. But I would keep the Fiend's appearances to a minimum. And when he came out, I'd have him mean something. And it's not that hard to do, because Triple H can do that. And I think he understands the value of less is more. And I think he will mean more. Now, Hulk Hogan, like I said, you saw him like once every month, every 5 weeks or something. You didn't see him wrestle on TV unless it meant something. Then you saw him.
Absolutely. And, my editor keeps having a go at me because apparently I keep saying absolutely all the time. So absolutely, Editor Chris. Sorry, I was a little private joke there. We will move on. And Ronda Rousey on her YouTube channel confirmed that at Extreme Rules she pitched using thumbtacks and she was turned down because they are now banned by WWE. What is the stupidest weapon or weapons in wrestling as far as being just overly high risk or completely illogical?
Well, I think we talked about a fire match. Did we talk about that, the Inferno match?
We did. Oh, actually, just because you mentioned the Inferno match, we got a couple of comments on that recently. Apparently, there were a couple of Inferno matches in Puerto Rico around 89.
Yeah, they were.
Or fire matches.
I had one in 94. I didn't have it. You couldn't melt and pour me in an Inferno match. Somebody said, "Hey, we want you to have a fire match." I said, well, "You're full of shit. I ain't getting in there." Can you imagine all the hair on me? If I just got close to that flame, I said, "No, guys, I'm not doing it." I refuse to do a lot of things in wrestling. I just wouldn't do them. Of course, I didn't make it like a big, I'm not doing that crazy shit. I said, "Oh man, I can't do that." You beg off, politely at first, but if they keep on, then you got to get a little stronger. You got to say, what part of no do you not understand? I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. My car is outside. I can go right through that door and get in the car and go home. I said, you can get mad, but hell, no, it'll hurt you more than it hurt me, but I'm not doing that. But, they had the Inferno match started in Japan.
Well, that's what some people were disputing, because I think the Inferno match might have been in the early 90s, and apparently Puerto Rico may have had one or two around 89. I'd have to search that up and have a look. No,
I will say I think either the Wings promotion had it.
FMW did.
Or FMW under Onita. Because I first met Onita in Puerto Rico, and he was kind of a weird duck. And then I hear that he's in Japan booking all these crazy ECW style matches, because he was the first hardcore guy out there, I think, in Japan. Mm-hmm. And they may have had hardcore, but not as a theme of a company. FMW was the first. Then Wings.
I think Wing was later, yeah.
Okay. But I do think it started, because I do remember one of those companies having a fire match on an island off the mainland of Japan, because they could go out there in the woods. There's nobody out there, and they set it up and they did it. I mean, you hear such crazy stuff out of Japan, but that's what I heard. And then they filmed it. But I think that was under, who was the Japanese guy that just died, Inoki?
Yeah, and I'll tell you exactly who it was. It was Antonio Inoki versus Masa Saito, and I know that because I researched that particular match for a video I did on the life of Inoki on the James Romero channel, the brand new YouTube James Romero channel, that you can link on the other two, this channel and the other one, which was a great segue. And yes, Saito nearly got blinded because he ended up going face first in this. So it wasn't like a ring of fire or anything. It was just like a torch. Like a big burning torch that was lighting the night sky. But yeah, it was on an island as well.
Okay, you're talking about the worst gimmicks that I've ever seen in matches?
No, not in matches. I'm talking just weapons, like the stupidest weapons you've ever seen. And I'm not talking like an inflatable shark or something like that. But, the ones that these idiots use, like thumbtacks or glass or light tubes or something like that, where you've just looked at it and thought, one, it looks terrible, and two, that would really, really hurt.
Well, they used to bust these fluorescent light bulbs over guys' heads, but they didn't know the health effects of that because the gas in it, very, very unhealthy. And if you breathe it, enough of it, because right when it pops, that gas is everywhere. So if you get a good whiff of it, I've read that it can cause cancer. It can do this. It can do that. I've been in matches where they had barbed wire, had a cage, tacks. They didn't have it on fire, but they threw fire. They did everything. And I'm thinking, what's left to do? I mean, my God, guys. I mean, you put it all in one match. But why that happens is there's one guy, independent guy, one guy wants to go down and he wants to be famous. So he puts all these matches together. And like he's the first one who ever had the fire and the tacks and the barbed wire and the blood and the lights and the baseball bats and the chairs and the ladders. He just put them all in one. So they go in there and try to figure this. And the people sit out there like this, like, oh, well, we've seen that shit before. But you see that stuff on independent shows a lot more than you're going to see it on big shows, because the big shows, they know how that can hurt your product. It hurts your product more than it helps it.
They did that in TNA, didn't they? With like that Clockwork House of Fun cage where they just used to have like 20 weapons around the thing, and it sort of didn't really quite have the build up that maybe it could have done.
Did you say TNA?
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
Traumatic.
I wasn't drugged up and doped up to where I don't remember it. I just don't remember it because I care not to remember it. I mean, it started out as a great idea, but over time it got corrupted because they were looking to draw ratings and they weren't patient. And I think they thought some of my ideas were too old-fashioned. And at the time, they may have been. Maybe they didn't have that time. But they should have told me that, but they didn't. But anytime, what they call that is you hot shot it. A hot shot is called, well, we need something. Oh, let's do this hot shot, boom, and we'll come back. And that works sometimes. But, and this is my old saying, it's not what you do initially. It's what you do on the second go around to make it the story. You can do a big pop, draw a big house, but then if you don't do the right thing coming back, you're right back where you started.
Mm-hmm. We will move on. I've got a few bits of news. I'll probably skip a couple of them, but I can't skip this one. Or actually, do you know what? I will, because it's really long. It's about The Rock maybe buying WWE, but we can talk about that at a later date. I will move on to this one, because we were chatting about it.
I was Nostradamus on that too.
You were Nostradamus on that. In fact, do you know what? I will talk about it. During a media scrums, you will have to now, to promote his new movie, Black Adam, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was asked about accepting a seat on the board of WWE or even buying the company outright. Here's the quote. I've known Vince McMahon for a very, very long time, and he's a businessman. I think the key, if there were a sale of the WWE, is to make sure that whoever acquires that brand in that property, you've got to love the wrestling business. Of course, you can love the asset and you can love everything that comes with it, but you've got to love the professional wrestling business. Further on, because if not, then you could kind of see the writing on the wall 4 or 5 years down the road. What will happen? Again, the best person to buy that company will be a group who love the wrestling business, and furthermore, I'm not quite too sure if a board seat is in my future, but possibly other things are in my future for sure. So he's not shut the door on the idea of buying WWE. He's very close with Nick Khan.
Yep.
You've been saying that WWE has been trying to shore up the stock to sell for a few years now.
Well, I predicted this like 2 years ago. I think they're going to get it ready to sell. That's why they got rid of so much talent, because the talent who wasn't adding anything to the bottom line. That's why their profits went up, and they had better profits during the pandemic with running no live events. And I don't know if they're doing more now. I think they're doing pretty good on the live events now. But, and I did say because I'm just spitballing it. I'm just saying, I think within 3 years, I said, this is 2 years ago. I said within 3 years, 4 years, the McMahon family may be completely divested of their WWE connections and stock, because I think it will be sold. And I think if the offer came and it was good enough, what's it all saying? I'll make them an offer they can't refuse. Godfather 1 or 2, or whatever it was. I think they're still waiting on that, because it's a $5 billion company. That's what it lists. That's what they estimate the value of it. And I do agree with Rock. Somebody that gets that has to love the wrestling business and has to know the ups and the downs of business flow. You know, somebody that's been in a business for a while, you say, well, it goes up in September, clothing people, because the kids are going back to school. Business comes up, but then it drops in October, things go flat. And then it starts coming up again around Thanksgiving to Christmas. And after Christmas, it drops off. You have to know those flows. And in the wrestling business, it's no different. What did surprise me about WWE is that January the 1st, the start of the new season, they got rid of that. They're not going to do that. And I don't know how you get a season in wrestling. I don't know, unless you just declare it. So they just declared January 1st is the new season. So let's get started on it. But I did think one time, and I'm just spitballing here again too, that football does well because it's not year round. They have an off season. Basketball, off, baseball, off season. Every sport like that, physical sport, has an off season. Wrestling doesn't have that. They run almost 300 days a year. And I think WWE and some of the territories ran more than that. They ran probably 320 days a year, sometimes double headers. So I think if somehow they could work it out they could have, and I don't know how you do that, tell you the truth. But I think that is not only would maybe help the product, it would give the guys something to look forward to, and the fans. Because now you could bill for a start. I don't know how that'd be done, but it's just an idea, and I wish they would maybe at least consider it.
To add on to that, UFC's parent company, Endeavor's president Mark Shapiro, has also said that if WWE were to come on the market, they would be interested in buying it if the right offer was presented. But just going back onto The Rock and potentially Nick Khan teaming up, is that they're both, I'm sure, very rich people, but they don't have $5 billion between them, which means they'll have to go to investment firms, get all the money in, and then get loads of people committed. And then not only do they have a lot of stockholders that they are now beholden to, now they've also got people above them who they owe money to as well, who are part owners of the company. And does that just muddy the waters a bit too much? I mean, WWE at the heart of it is still a family-owned company.
Well, you mentioned what's the name, Shapiro?
Yeah, Mark Shapiro of Endeavor.
Just because a guy has money and the company has money, they do not know how to run a wrestling company. That's where Rock says you have to love the wrestling business to get it to work. Just because you got money and you made it like in oil or however you made it, don't mean you know crap about promoting. So you would have to get somebody who knows how the wrestling business works and start it like that. I think the worst thing for them to do is sell it to a UFC type company, because I think they're so used to the shoot styles and all this. And I remember, who's the head of the UFC now? What's his name?
We're still the president is Dana White.
Oh yeah, Dana White said one time, we'll never do that stuff wrestling does. What? That's your whole interest now. Music, the lights, the this, the that. It's show business. And so when he said that, I says, you're going to change your mind, buddy. Because he was like knocking pro wrestling till he saw something that, well, it might help him. And now he likes wrestling now. He likes the presentation of it because it's a story. When those guys do a UFC fight, you know, they do all these little clips on them and this and this and this and this. They tell the story of these two guys finally coming at loggerheads in that ring. And he doesn't seem to mind that. Now, it may be more of a shoot style, or it might not be. See, the jury's still out on UFC. Because guess what in UFC?
Go on.
Only one guy has to know. Right?
Yep.
The same way about boxing. An old timer smarted me up about boxing. And I said, is it a work? He said, he looked at me like, are you stupid? And I started saying, well, yeah, I really am. But he says the thing about boxing is only one guy has to know. What's the Pulp Fiction guy? And he knocked a guy out and he was supposed to lose. Then he ran away. He put that big bet on himself and he ran away. See, the other guy thought he was going to he was prepared to put him over, but he couldn't do it. He made that big bet, knocked the guy out because he didn't want to lose, hit the road. So it makes sense. Only one guy has to know. And you know where the blade came from in wrestling?
We've said this before. It was from boxing, wasn't it? Because when you get a big swelling,
zip, and somebody says, "Damn, what if that stops the bleeding? What if we did it to start the bleeding?"
Just to add on to what you were saying, Dana White's like, I don't like boxing got super popular, or even more popular, because of wrestling, because they took the lessons that wrestling came up with, like Muhammad Ali talking. I mean, he was influenced by Gorgeous George. I mean, Gorgeous George influenced many people. And yeah, as you said, the fights don't draw money. Personalities draw money.
Personalities and issues. Mm-hmm. Personal issues draw money. Hell, you could. I've seen shows on TV, boxing matches. There's nobody in the crowd. It's just two guys boxing each other. And they're doing that because they're just like second match guys or third match guys. And they're just getting experience and building up their resume so they can maybe get to a championship match. And they may get one, they may not. But very few of those stars, like let's say Sugar Ray Leonard. And to me, that Sugar Ray Leonard era was the best era ever in boxing because they had a lot of them. Duran guy.
Yeah, Roberto Duran, man, he's scary, wasn't he?
Oh my God! But anyway, that's what wrestling kind of started everything. If you really look at it, it started TV. It got TV. People stand in front of the store, look through the windows, and watch wrestling because it was unaffordable. And Ted Turner, he credited the success of the Superstation in Atlanta on wrestling. And wrestling was a staple of local TV for years and years and years. They didn't really want it, but they liked what it drew. And a TV station didn't tell you that. They looked at it like, oh, that's low rent stuff, and we don't want that. So they saw the ratings and knew they could sell the ratings to all these people at a high price, and then they liked it.
It was, especially in the early days, it was cheap, and it was quick to produce, and it got high ratings. So what more do you want?
Yeah, and now it's not cheap, and it's not quick, and it's not, it's not easy to produce either.
No, absolutely. I've said absolutely again, me.
See, you said it again. We're going to break you of that. Tell your producer, I'm going to break you of it.
Mm. Yeah. My original tick was saying righto. I mean, it couldn't have been more English. Righto, that kind of thing. We'll go for two more quick stories, I think. I mentioned this to you beforehand, and you sent me the video of it. AEW has filed a trademark for the term Varsity Club, which is a good excuse to ask you for a story or two on Kevin Sullivan.
Oh, Kevin Sullivan?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows this, but I met Kevin Sullivan. We met before we really got into business. We were kind of in the business, but really like low independent business. And he is from Boston. I'm from South Carolina originally, and we met because my brother really liked wrestling, and he ran a little promotion, really little. And Kevin wanted to get into business. I kind of did too, but I didn't really say, well, that's what I want to do, because I was never growing up, I was a fan of wrestling, but never a real big fan of wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I could even tell then that it was a little bit orchestrated and rehearsed a little bit, but didn't take away from my enjoyment of it. I just never followed it that much. And I met Kevin, I bet when we was like 19 years old. And that's where I first ran across him. Then he went to work for the Georgia Territory, and I went to the U.S. Army, and they tried to kill me overseas for about a year. Then I came back. But Kevin, he did a deal one time I saw. You were telling me this guy named Kinemura?
Yeah, at the time he may have been like Wing Kinemura. You sent me the video.
Oh, it was the first time Well, Kevin has always been a little hardcore. And let's promise these people we'll show them that Kitamura tape next time. Can we do that?
I can
Don't,
I can put it up now if you want.
Well, it's up to you.
It might be actually, to be honest, it might actually be a bit too gory, and I might have to. I'll probably not. It's already censored.
It's already censored. You just see the cut one time.
Okay,
but it's the damnedest. Well, let me just explain it.
Okay.
They said this guy that he had the spike where he would spike them. So he had this Japanese guy that I knew from Adam's House Cat. I didn't know this guy, and I found out later that he worked for the Wings promotion or the FMW promotion, one of them, which was the forerunner of ECW in Japan. I think we just talked about it, and he got there. He couldn't wrestle for shit, but he could bleed like a bastard. So they got him on TV, and I was watching those people. He was bleeding, and the people were like, they were shying away from him because he did get what we call color. He got a lot of color. And then he pulled out the spike, and he put it in his arm. And there's only one place. It's only like 24 seconds long, I think. Not very long. But you do see the cut. But, strangely, he bled a lot more from his head than his arm. And that arm was a gash. I mean, if you can stand to see this stuff, hell, we can stand to show it to you. But that was the first time I'd ever met Kitamura. And that's how he got his job, because he could bleed. He was a bleeder.
You weren't doing commentary. It was Bob Caudle and...
It was me.
Oh, was it you? I thought it was Bob Caudle and someone else. Maybe there were three in the booth.
No.
Oh, okay then. I'll tell you what then. I'll pause for a second. I'll bring it up for you. And we're back. I'm going to turn the volume down slightly, and here we go.
He's got a spike there or something. Look at there.
Whoa.
Oh, my God.
So I spoke to Kevin Sullivan not too long ago, and he said that this Kitamura character X-Acto knifed his own arm.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I remember that now.
That's unbelievable. You're talking about ghastly.
Now look, that's where you see it right there. See?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Kimura is trying to hold back, but Sullivan...
Now, for the video viewers at home, I've got an overlay over this video so I can use this without getting copyright ID stung from YouTube. But I do have the right to use this because we're watching this for the purpose of review. There's a disclaimer for you. Oh, jeez.
Oh, it's too much.
It's awful, isn't it?
Now, this was done 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Here comes somebody, Larry Santos.
Well, here comes somebody. I'll tell you who.
What's he called? Brian Clark, the Night Stalker.
Yeah, I think so. That was him.
There we go.
Now, this was a little crowd in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and you go back in those nooks and crannies of the Appalachian Mountains. No live shows came there. So every time we would show up for a TV, and you can't put more than 700, 800 people in those small high school gyms, but it was packed out. So, but I never knew, and I found this out later, that he bled from his head, and I've already said this, but his arm, and it had a cut about this long on it, and about I guess a quarter-inch deep. It was a gash. It didn't bleed that much. Odd, isn't it?
Well, that's a good thing he didn't go through an artery. But I mean, what planet was he on that he thought that was a good idea? He only ever turned up once. I think that was his only match in Smoky.
That's the only one he had, because Kevin Sullivan got him there. Because I think Kevin was working for FMW or Wings at the time, and I think they wanted to send this guy, because the Japanese promotions used to like to send their talent to the United States or to America.
Yeah, excursion.
And just have them, just go around, and I don't know what the idea behind it was, but I guess they wanted to expose them to the world of wrestling. I don't know, because they damn sure didn't make any money on it. I don't think Jim Cornette paid a lot of money for this guy. I guess they paid him the regular fee, or maybe a little bit, but I think Cornette in these territories they made barter deals where I'll send you this guy and give you tape on him, and you send me that guy.
And then this guy gets sent back home with dozens of stitches in his arm for a $50 payoff. And
it was probably more than that. I think they probably got him up to, it was 30 years ago. He probably made 300, 200 something, which was at today wasn't that bad. But still, to mutilate your body for any amount of money, remember that I was a wussy and I would not do it. I could be broke on my ass sitting on the street and say, hey, if you go up and you just cut your damn arm, we give you $1,000. I said, hey, I don't know. I ain't doing it. Because then if I cut my arm, then I don't have no money to pay the doctor. Probably go to the doctor, it'd be $1,100, and they only give me $1,000.
It's probably like the Andy Kaufman thing where he ended up staying in hospital for 3 days, and he said he paid for it himself. That far exceeded, I'm sure, the payment for the Memphis paid him. There's 3 more bits of news that I haven't gone through, and I'm going to let you pick which one you want to talk about. Then we'll shut down the podcast. Sammy Guevara, Renee Paquette / Young, or Coco Beware.
Let's go the first one.
Sammy Guevara's recent backstage battles, not only with Eddie Kingston, but now Andrade. Guevara complained that Andrade was stiffing him and then went on Twitter to call Andrade a jobber and a favor hire. Altercation happens. Andrade sucker punches Guevara. This is in the back during a Dynamite taping that everybody saw coming, and Tony Khan did nothing about it, or seemingly didn't put extra security or keep them separated for the day. A theory going around is that Andrade was attempting to get fired so he could go back to WWE, who are possibly interested in him returning. What do you think of that?
I've never seen a company like AEW. They let their talent do almost anything. Now, to issue a private challenge to a guy like Andrade, who could beat the crap out of Sammy Guevara at any time he wants to, and when he goes on Twitter, everybody sees it. It's not like Tony Khan was oblivious to the fact that he was challenging one of his talents, and it makes him look bad. Makes the whole company look bad. And why? Maybe Guevara was trying to get, I don't know. But I think the company is out of control now, with Meltzer kind of turning on them and kind of not behind them as much as he was before. I think Tony has worked himself into a chute. And now he's going to have to see if he can work his way out of this. And him doing those scrums does him no good at all, unless he can go out there on the scrum and actually take some action that would be concrete and decisive. It's not going to do him any good. The old saying goes, you cannot be, if you're a boss, you cannot be buddy-buddy with the employees. You can't be buddy-buddy with the talent, because wrestlers, by their very nature, are very conniving, working guys, because that's the business they're in. They're trying to make people believe something is this when it's really not. So when he gets to Tony Khan, they can make him believe something is and is not very easily, because he's just and I like Tony, but he's just a big fan. Now he gets to play with actual toys and spend some actual money. The old saying in wrestling, how do you make $2 million, $1 million in wrestling? You start with $2 million. Mm-hmm. That's what they used to say. But I think he's let his discipline in his dressing room run rampant without him doing anything. And I don't know what all these agents and that he's got, while they know about it, why don't they report that to Tony? So I don't know. I think he's worked himself into a hole here. It's going to take him a while to work out of it. If I was Tony, I would take myself off that TV totally.
With just to add, the fight, so it is called, Andrade apparently sucker punched him, maybe punched Guevara twice. Guevara did not fight back. That's why he went on to TV later that night. He didn't have any marks on him either, so there can't have been that great a punch. And he wrestled in the main event, or he wrestled on the show, and Andrade, I don't think, has wrestled since. So the company seems to be taking Sammy's side.
Well, it would seem that way. But but should they take Sammy Sad? Because he actually, whether there was heat between him and Andrade to begin with, I'm sure there was, but he put the challenge up there first, didn't he?
Andrade tweeted as well. I'm not that clear on the wherewithal. This was an end bit of news I just left on quickly. I just put on the script quickly.
Both of them tweeted each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there's bad feelings. And did Tony Khan call them together that night?
I very much doubt it. I think
it was
just ignored, essentially.
Well, you can't ignore that stuff because Andrade is Hispanic and Mexican, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is very, in their culture, you don't do that. Because now he has to stand up for himself. Or his fellow buddies, they think he's just a wussy. And especially with Guevara, who needs to eat a sandwich, he might weigh 180 pounds, maybe at most. And so who knows what was said, but Guevara, he's lucky that's as far as it went, I think. Because how old is Andrade?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know, mid-30s maybe.
He's not that old, is he?
I'm gonna Google and find out for you. In fact, you might have to talk for a short while I Google it, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're sitting here, and it's this exciting time of the podcast now.
He's 32.
All right. So that's Andrade's 32.
Mm-hmm.
How old is Guevara?
Oh my God! You're gonna have to speak for a second here while I just Google it.
Okay. Well, he can't be about 23, can he? Maybe 24.
29.
Okay. Well, he looks a lot younger, but he doesn't look tough. He doesn't look like he could defend himself. And when you run your mouth around a wrestling dressing room, somebody's going to call you on it. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, they just come up and say, "Hey, what's the deal, man?" And then you talk about it, and you either come to a conclusion or you throw hands. Mm-hmm. I've been on several ends of that.
Have you always been like the mediator, the person in between splitting them up more? Or was it you who told me? Or maybe it was Ricky Morton or someone who just said, whenever I saw a fight in the dressing room, I made sure to stand as far back as possible and just let them fight it out. Because they may hit me.
Well, I was in a small dressing room, and if they'd started fighting, they would have come around. And I told them to stop. Did I try to stop them? No, I didn't. I just told them to stop. Because there were two guys that we kind of needed that we were using well. And we were really doing good business then. So I didn't want to see either one of them get hurt because that would hurt the value of the cards we were presenting. But they didn't want to stop. And listen, a fight will stop on its own in 15, 20 seconds. Unless, they really want to slug it out. But most fights, I very seldom saw a fight go more than 30 seconds. Because one guy takes an ass kicking, he don't want it, he walks away or whatever, I quit, But fights like that are kind of very short.
Well, I'll tell you what wasn't short was this podcast. We got through a lot of news. I'm sure we entertained many, many thousands of people with your musings. But before we shut down, let's do the plugs once again. I've got 2 books on the Owen, Hart and Rock. The links in the description of the podcast or YouTube. On Amazon, very, very well reviewed. You've got 2 books as well, Dutch. And also, if somebody wants a signed copy of your book, they go where?
Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. I'll get back to you. We'll lay the foundation for it. And then you got 2 books signed by me to you. And I also have a University of Dutch diploma that is for sale. I don't even know where they are right now, but I have your name on it. And it's signed by 2. Here's one. It's signed by, James, this is yours again. And I haven't signed them, but Dutch Mantell will sign it. And so will Zeb Colter. So you get 2 autographs, and this is not completed, but I use it as and your name will be right there. And write me at Dirty Dutch Mantell. You can hang this on your wall, and it's a great, great looking diploma. I even made myself one, and I will get you one when the postal prices go down in UK.
Okay, then. So I'll get mine in about 2038 then, the way things are going. Everything, the pound's terrible at the moment.
Hey, I could die, and then all of a sudden you get it a year later. And you say, oh, well, he promised to send it, and he always keeps the promise. So anyway, and you can catch me on Sportskeeda, Facebook Sportskeeda at 11 o'clock Friday night. I know it's late on the East Coast, but we talk about SmackDown, and sometimes we rip SmackDown. Sometimes we rip Rampage. Because I've been watching Rampage lately. The show's deteriorated. It's nowhere as good as it used to be. Because now they're just putting matches out there. You need to put matches out there that have a little bit of a story behind them. But they're not doing that. But hey, that's their shop. So I'll let them do what they want to do.
There we go. We'll probably talk about Rampage at some other point as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching. And thank you, Dutch, for entertaining us once again. We'll catch you next week.